Wine storage occupies an important part of any fine wine life. However, the segment, the 17th part of a wine journey, is not usually thought about. Storing wine for a number of years comes with its sets of difficulties and challenges, from lacks of tracking system, humidity-resistant boxes, and moving and storing the wine at a controlled humidity and temperature all year round. Wine poorly kept shows a sign of early maturation or oxidation, and this is a problem for the long-term wine collectors worldwide. I spoke on location with Vincent O'Brien, Managing Director of Octavian, an old mine converted in time to storage for ammunition during the Second World War, and then to wine storage. Vincent shares the challenges that he and his team faces every day in a facility also known as the Fort Knox of wine, 30 meters below ground, few access points, and under 57 steps to descend underground with ventilation, best-in-class services. If you're enjoying the shows, remember to subscribe. Now, on with the show. Hi, I'm Mattia Scarpazza, and this is the Looking Into Wine podcast. Wine and winemaking can be complex, but this podcast has a simple mission. We want to give you the skills and tools to harness your passion about wine. Through this series, we will shine a spotlight on some of the different regions, process, and concepts that shape the fascinating world of wine. I hope you enjoy the show and your own journey looking into wine. Welcome to the Looking Into Wine podcast. I'm Mattia Scarpazza, your host, and today with me is Vincent O'Brien, Managing Director of Octavian, the world's most renowned and advanced wine storage facility in Wiltshire, also known as the Fort Knox of wine. Vincent, I spent the morning with you traveling around the mine and everything. I can see your enthusiasm. Tell me a little bit about you and how you got here.
Well, I'm Irish, so I came over to the UK in '94. I've had a history in commodities, telecoms. I'm an accountant by trade. So coming here is kind of a perfect mixture of all of those skills because I'm managing risk, financial and physical, on behalf of our customers. And because it's become more of an investment element now, I have a little bit of an understanding about that, which has kind of shaped some of the processes and procedures we've put in place.
Okay, so tell me a little bit, where are we in which part of England, and the history about Octavian, because I think it's very fascinating.
Well, we're in just outside Corsham in Wiltshire, so Junction 17 on the M4 for a lot of people will probably know a little bit better. We're out in the middle of the countryside. It is a old stone mine that was basically used to mine stone for a lot of the houses in Bath. It is a very good quality stone with very few faults, which basically allows a level of insulation for what we're using it for now. It was then taken over by the MOD in the Second World War for storing munitions, and one of the key things that they introduced back then was the level of ducting that they have throughout the mine, which allows us to manage the humidity and the temperature throughout. So it's perfectly made for what we're currently using it for.
What's the size of the facility?
It's 1 million square feet, so it's quite an expansive area. It presents some challenges, as you can imagine. It's a long journey time between picks. Yeah. The average pick is about 2,000 meters, so it means we have downtime between picks because we have to get to the location. Luckily, the majority of our stock is sitting here to rest and mature, so picking is only an element of what we do and probably the smaller part of it.
Yeah, no, I've seen the warehouse and it's incredible. And God knows about your tracking system, because it must be a lot of numbers. But I think before we get into your technicalities, why is Octavian the ideal place for aging wines, and what are the challenges you find in it for?
The ideal place to store wine. It's underground. It's got a constant temperature of 13 degrees. It fluctuates a little bit, but it doesn't go outside a degree temperature. The humidity is at 80%, and we manage that with all of the ducting and introducing airflow. So all underground is not going to be equal if it doesn't have the ability to manage airflow. So we can, so it makes it perfect. The fact we're out in the countryside, we've got a private road that comes up to us, means that we've got a very secure environment. The air that we're exchanging is out in the countryside, so very fresh, and it allows us to basically take care of the wine in a very careful way. We are only focused on fine wine in reality, so we're able to make decisions and investments based on the knowledge that we've built. We don't have to be worrying about other products that we're selling or anything like that. It's very much focused, and we've developed a lot of software to help us and align again alongside our warehouse system. A lot of it is about capturing information, capturing images for every stage of the process. So if a question arises, we've got an answer.
Yeah. And I mean, about like I'm thinking of last summer, it was quite a hot year, and even here in England. How does that affected your humidity or temperatures?
We, when it's humid outside, we have to monitor the airflow that we're basically bringing in, but we have got systems that allows us to do that. But temperature-wise, we were constant because we're 100 feet below ground. Humidity, as I said, takes a little bit more of a monitoring and a challenge, but we can keep the air static underground without exchanging it and bringing new air for a number of weeks. So at a particular hot time, sometimes we'll just shut off the airflow and basically make sure that we basically manage what we got inside. It allows us to basically keep it constant, which is a big thing, because there would have been a lot of warehouses in the UK and throughout Europe basically having large fluctuations because modern warehouses aren't very well insulated. They don't have to meet the EPC standards that a lot of houses basically do. So their fluctuations in heat and temperature would have basically been struggling. And we always question why other warehouses aren't a little bit more transparent about what the temperature and humidity controls they have in place. There's a lot of catch-all under it's temperature controlled, but humidity is such a key part of basically storing wine as well, and very few warehouses seem to be advertising that they do humidity as well.
What's so because obviously, I mean, every listeners or anybody wouldn't have access to have a perfect condition and humidity and storage. But what are the risk then for, like, if there increase the humidity it's not balanced, it keeps going up and down? What are your
The risk is that the corks start drying out, and then you've increased risk of oxidization, that the wine is not going to be the way it should be. And how it's been set out, so we've tried to mirror a lot of the chateaux storage conditions. We've got white papers that basically support the conditions that we basically store at, so we're very proud to be able to basically specifically say this is what we do. And we've been here for 30 years. The proof's in the pudding. Our customer base is growing. A lot of private individuals are storing directly with us, so they see the value in having an account and storing directly with us and not through an intermediary. Okay.
And I've seen the operation of when the wines arrives and everything. How does so you have almost 2 billion pound of stock in here. How does like the security looks like for Octavian clients?
The security starts on denying access to anyone who doesn't need to be here. So anyone who's coming in has to have a security code for us to open the gate. And that's normally with goods coming in. They have to have, our customer needs to have contacted us to inform us that there's a vehicle coming, and they get a code. We have physical security at the gate, but that's also backed up by CCTV and remote monitoring. So we've taken as many precautions as possible. Even the man guarding company is separate to the CCTV company, so there's a little bit of competitive tension between the two. So there's no complacency between them. And if anything is outside the norm, some of us managers have text messages or notifications that come us up on our phone.
Because I mean, one of the elements I got speaking to you is the level of traceability from when the moment you receive your wine at the deck until it gets stored away is very organized. what is what are some of the procedures you have in place?
I think going back, a typical warehouse system basically will look at things in phases. We don't believe that that gives enough transparency. And if there's a question mark around anything, we want to make sure that we're in a position to be able to inform and give evidence of what's happened. So we take a lot of images throughout the processes, but that also gives us visibility as management to be able to see where everything is and to keep everything on track. So it's very much about anything that's we made visible, we can measure and we can track. And that's been the key thing that we've been trying to do. So we've got 2 software writers within our team that basically help augment the system that we have. Everything is treated equally. So we don't, we have a slightly different process for high value stock because it'll go a different thing. It'll be handled in a slightly separate way, but that's the only deviation because we'll want that to sit separately so that it's not amongst general population of other items of stock. But overall, we try not to let any of the warehouse guys know the value of any item because we want them to treat everything equally. It's not our stock we're looking at on behalf of individuals, so we want to treat it with the utmost respect.
Yeah, you are a part of the process from the wineries to the end consumers, so they are sitting. What's you saying? I mean, I've seen some of the wines you have around here. By no means there is no entry level wine or anything. There's a lot of very interesting wines, but how long is your average holding capacity of bottles here? Just to
it's a hard one again, because predominantly there's 12 packs going out because that's what predominantly the older wines were, the older vintages, and they're being replaced by 6s, 3s, singles, and a lot of whiskey coming in at the moment. So to be able to say exactly what capacity is a bit of a moving feast. We always have space. Our job is to basically make space as we can. And looking at the way the packaging is, we've been able to utilise new space with new shelving solutions and stuff like that. So we're constantly looking to how we can improve and how we can invest to make things better for our customers and for ourselves. So it's just one of those. But I think the way the market is going, there's a lot more movement going on. The secondary market is growing. So that level of transparency, because there's a lot more questions of dealing with secondary market stock than there would be on something coming in on Premier. So it's kind of fed into a lot of the changes we've already done.
Okay, and what do you wish then, like general collectors or trade people will know more about the storing, or what are what gets you frustration?
I think the key frustration for me is I just feel that there's not enough questions asked. Not saying that we've got all the answers, but I think it's the level of questioning with the level of values that we're being held responsible for, that sometimes some of the basic questions we would expect to be asked aren't being asked. So every case that comes in here, we put a rotation label on it, which is its security feature. It tells you the name and it tells you the number that's allocated to the case. So it's like the license plate for your car, but it's for the case. I'm surprised how few customers get visibility of that within the wider marketplace. I would expect that to have been something that should be more frequently shared, so that the amount of people that don't have their names on the case and the issues that can present as well, like if whoever you're storing with goes into liquidation or goes bust, because your name's not on the case, it's not in your ownership, you become an unsecured creditor. So are people asking those questions? From what I see, maybe not as much as they should be. They're not taking some of that control. The level of insurance, is it adequate? Is it, we insure to over 400 million each and every loss. So it doesn't reflect all that we're storing, because we can't envisage any risk with our insurers that would knock everything out. We believe what we're insuring to would basically cover any eventuality that we would basically have to face. But it's these types of questions I think people need to ask, and when people are reviewing storage options, it shouldn't just be primarily on price. Very few of our customers would basically make wine decisions just on that. It's an amalgamation of other information that they should be considering. Temperature, humidity as well. A lot of other warehouses are very vague around that. Whereas we try to be as specific as possible, and we spend a lot of time measuring it.
And I think one of the key factor, and you mentioned a few times, is about the insurance, about how important it is for you, for your clients, for the security. How much value do you think it adds to?
I think it's one of those things. It's like pensions and insurance at home. It's a value when something goes wrong, but basically none of us really enjoy talking about it when things are going right. So it's about understanding that if the values we're talking about, it's about having that level of security and understanding that things can go wrong, and having a level of reassurance that you've got it looked after. We see it's important that we insure ourselves. We don't insure our customers, and that's a very clear point. They get the benefit of our insurance by storing with us. But we believe that if we're taking that level of responsibility for our customer stock, well, we would insure it. If you're not insuring it, then you're not really taking an awful lot of responsibility. Yeah. So it is about making sure that the customer knows that we have skin in the game. It's in our best benefits and interests to look after your stock the best way we can, because ultimately we expect you to hold us accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is like an important part of the chain for investments, and for someone who's looking for long-term storage and security, then nothing could possibly go wrong. But
ideally, and I think what I'd like to try and get across is I'm part of your investment. I'm not a cost against your investment. And I know I'm being very aspirational there, because people will say, no, you're a cost, definitely. But in a world where people are looking for more and more transparency, we seem to be judging the product based on its aesthetics in the secondary market. There's very little information out there for people to make an informed decision. So on our exchange, for example, we share the history of the case, how long it's been in our care, an image of it. That's freely available. We have it. We can share it. The question I'd have is, why isn't that being shared more often in the industry, so that people can make informed decisions, and maybe the aesthetics become a little less important because there's more information to make qualified decisions. Which, when you think about every other market that has a secondary market, that information is available. So why isn't it available here?
Yeah, because I mean, you obviously want to, I'm thinking like an auction house and everything, you want to have the information where it comes from, and everything. And there's I mean, I was saying about some of the challenges you're facing with, like you mentioned that from the 12 packs to the 3, and now the single bottles. How is evolving for you the fine wine packaging, or the fine wine world? What are you seeing out there?
I think what we're seeing is, as the values have increased, certainly at the top end, the pack sizes have become smaller, but also people are buying more single packs and smaller pack sizes on the secondary market. So we're finding that we're probably moving the same amount of volume, but in smaller pack sizes. So if I was to look at cases overall, probably still moving 1 million odd cases a year, but it's broken up into there's a lot more singles in it. There's a lot more 3 packs, which means we're handling it a lot more. It also puts some spatial challenges to us, because you know in a 12 pack you could make a perfectly good pallet, which allowed us to maximize the space that we had, whereas now we've got an awful lot of different pack sizes. Even a standard 6 pack isn't standard. They're all different dimensions, all different sizes, so it does create us some space issues. We've had to look at our storing solutions to basically do it a little bit more. Packaging has become a lot more challenging as well, because with sustainability, people are using recycled card, which for the most are only meant to last within 5 to maybe 10% max humidity. We're at 80%. They're supposed to biodegrade as soon as they're over a period of time. So it's kind of counterintuitive to what we're asking it to do. We've got a product that has a lifespan that's probably going to be beyond the lifespan of the packaging that it's being put into. And there's very few people seemingly challenging that. I'm challenging because it's at my interest, but it's a little bit frustrating that we're being asked to store a product that's not fit for its job, and then we're being held accountable for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking some of the packaging for champagnes and things so that they is advertised as being biodegradable. Almost like you question how long they want it to actually.
The way I kind of look at it is, it's like buying a car that the paintwork isn't going to last its lifetime.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, can you know, so we've got an investment grade wine, or why haven't we got an investment grade packaging?
Yeah.
That seems to be a variable, whereas most people could say, okay, well, that's an investment grade wine.
Yeah.
I think we might have a few anomalies, but I'd say most people would get 80 to 90% of that right. Why is the packaging then so variable against that 80 to 90%?
Yeah.
I find that a little bit frustrating.
And you, one of the things you do here in Octavian is you repackage, you take pictures. There's a lot of, not a lot of handling, because I don't want to say there is a lot of handling, because I'm sure the wine sits there peacefully for many years. But what are some of the elements of handling you do? Some of the
Well, from as soon as the moment the stocks arrive, if it's in a type of condition that we wouldn't expect it to be, we will take an image and we'll inform the customer, because we are their end senses. If it's got a tear, if it's got squashed or something like that, we will take an image, send to the customer. Are you okay with this being landed into your account? Because it gives them that opportunity to go back to their supplier within a time frame to say, actually, yeah, I don't like that, or I want it changed. So that'll be the first part. That'll then be landed separately, so that even if they do keep it, they know that it's not a pristine case. So if they're going to gift it to someone, they know that one's not maybe the one to do. Predominantly after that, it's about putting it away and just resting it. We will get a lot of requests for images, so for a lot of customers, they'll want us to take the bottles out and see the condition of the labels, its levels and that, and we take over 8,000 cases a month images for. Some people do it for everything, some people do it for high value or older vintages. And we would recommend anything over a certain value should probably have an image, because it's irregular, but we certainly have seen times where you open a case and it's not what you expect it to be. And if you've spent a certain amount over it, why would you take that risk? So we would recommend people to take images are certainly over, say, £8,000 to £10,000. Definitely, I would.
You would have. Have you seen any of the funny things you've seen? You can share about some stories about.
We've opened up a case of Mouton that had prosecco inside. We've opened up another high level case and that had bottles of beer inside. So it's not unusual sometimes that these things can happen, and odd things happen over a period of time. But it's the guys have got very good at basically trying to weigh the case in their hands. So it's amazing how many times they kind of go, this feels a little bit light or it feels wrong, and we'll ask permission to open the case for the customer, because it's not our property. So we don't freely interfere with a case unless we've got permission to do so.
Okay, and I mean, just you are basically a warehouse. You are part of your storage facility, but with a lot of more benefit and more services than a regular warehouse.
Well, I think a lot of warehouses could probably do reasonably the same. I think the difference that we're trying to say is we're trying to put our customer into a position of visibility, so that any concern we see, we're sharing with them as best we can. We're basically sharing that responsibility, but also because we're ensuring to the levels we want to make sure that it's clear that there's a level of what I'm willing to take responsibility for, and if this has happened before me, this is what I've received. You can go back, but if it's documented at this moment in time, well, then we both know where our responsibilities lie.
I think one of the elements I got to speaking with you is one of the things you wish especially fine wine world to implement a bit better is some sort of standard for the barcode, or some more unified front about that. Why is this such a challenge for you?
Well, in every other warehousing product, we have barcodes that basically our handhelds can read. So when I first arrived in the fine wine world, I'd come from general warehousing to this, and I thought it should have been an easy transition, but it wasn't. It took me a while to get around there's a lot of emotion within the industry. There's a high expectation, but the inputs that you get to work with are a lot lower than it is in the general logistics world. So in comparison to dealing with a general consumer product that comes in with a GS1 barcode, you scan it, the readers are all ready to read it, so it tells you what the product is, and all. So it reduces an awful lot of the manual interventions we're having to do, because fine wine doesn't have barcodes on it. So, and each customer that we deal with, like within trade, they'll have different product codes. So there's no universal there. So there's an awful lot of duplication of effort, which takes up time, adds cost. And the frustrating thing is, we were told that, one of the reasons I was told was that the fine wine world wouldn't want barcodes on their product. But what I'm seeing now over the last few years is security features coming in, which are barcodes. So you kind of go, well, if we had the original barcodes put on the product, would we need these? Probably not, because the GS1 barcodes gives us a level of basically traceability and visibility. So if it works for every other consumer product that we basically buy, why is this exempt?
Is there any winery that you know of is using this? Is any
Not that I'm aware. I think
notable exception?
But like, I think if it's going into supermarkets, they have to have barcodes, because it's basically the standards that it is. It's basically, there just seems to be this gap.
Okay.
And maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but all I can see is what we're having to live every day. And the challenge is we're given paperwork to mark things off, and we're going back 20, 30 years in the general logistics world to do something. And it just seems perverse that the most valuable stock that you can deal with is actually got a lower threshold than some of the ready-made consumer stuff. A bar of soap comes in better prepared for handling in a warehouse than this does.
Okay.
So, I'm not, we've got to live with it. We've got to, and we react to it and stuff like that. So I wouldn't like to say I'm rebelling against it, but when people are saying, why are we slow? Why aren't we more efficient? What more can we do? These are the challenges that we're presented that we have no control. All we can do is react to what we're being presented. And a lot of the time, when the security features have been added to these cases, we're the first person who's telling the trade or the end consumer that these cases have arrived with that. So communication wise, we're not set up to basically receive it, because we're only finding out as soon as the case arrives. Reaction is always slower than basically being able to proactively plan.
Yeah, I mean, you sit in a very interesting part of the wine business, which I don't think gets much of the glory, and I mean, it doesn't get too much of the speak about it, but I think it's very fascinating. I'm loving this conversation, but you're also doing some one of the new feature you had it on Octavian is your trading between customers. How does that look? And
well, the one thing that we have realized is a lot of customers who are storing, their portals and the visibility of their portfolios isn't as good as it should be. So we worked with wine owners to basically come up with a portal for our customers, and that gives them full traceability of their portfolio, which gives them their rotation number, how long it's been stored, who they bought it from, market values, and so forth. So they can actually, it's a really good collector system. But one of the other features we've added on it is it allows them to buy and sell between other customers within Octavian, because we found the challenge we had against other trade customers is our direct customers didn't have a route to market. So if they wanted to sell, they'd normally have to move their portfolio somewhere else or whatever. So this is basically,
it's an inside benefit.
It is an inside benefit. But also the case isn't moving. It allows the people to have full traceability, so they can see how long it's been in our care. So even if you bought a case now and it's only been in your account 3 weeks, but it's been with us for 3 or 4 years, you get the benefit of that history. So what we're trying to do is build up a level of information that allows people to make a more informed decision, because in the secondary market now it's normally about price point or who you trust to buy from, whereas what we're trying to say is, this is the value of it, this is how long it's been in our care, this is the image on the exchange, so you can actually see what it looks like as well. So it's given as much information as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with all the traceability and all these talks about NFC and all these new blockchain, I feel like I think you mentioned earlier there's a bit of a disconnect between the highly traceability of the blockchain, but then when you attach it to a physical item, it gets a bit that gets a bit of a differentiation.
Well, the way I always look at it is we're the physical embodiment of it. Like, most of my customers don't get to see the case. I'm here and we're here every day seeing what's going. So we get to see, whereas everyone else is probably more theoretical about what it is.
Yeah.
The communication trail isn't particularly brilliant, so it that could do with being improved, definitely. But it's about understanding, well, if blockchain is the answer, why aren't we utilizing some of the tools we've got currently? Yeah. If that's the solution you've got, we might have the perfect solution, but I have to be able to trace everything for HMRC to pay tax. If anyone who's ever dealt with HMRC, they quite like record keeping to be able to evidence things. So we have a fair amount of record keeping already that isn't being utilized. So instead of maybe being so aspirational about what we can do tomorrow, maybe could we not start looking at what we've got today?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it seems adding just another element to add to the platform and everything. But it was the last. I wanted to ask a last question, because you say visibility and everything. What are the wines? What are the sort of new trends that you've seen in the fine wine world that you think they're getting more exposure here?
Whiskies are definitely something that we're seeing a big growth in. So we're seeing a lot of big gift pack, presentation pack whiskies coming in. That is definitely been a big growth factor, probably in the last 18 months. We're seeing an awful lot of champagne move at the moment as well. There seems to be a lot of people buying champagne or selling, so we see a lot of movement of champagne, especially the older vintages at the moment. Either people who are just releasing capital and new people coming in buying it. So that's certainly something that we've seen an unusual amount of movement in the last.
Okay. What about what's the sort of percentage for like fortified wine that's supposed to last a lifetime, and what sort of mark?
It's small, to be fair. We've got a fair amount of port, but it's in the minority against the Bordeaux's and Burgundies. Italy is kind of caught up a bit, but it's predominantly Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, really.
Okay, that's the main a lot. Yeah, because for me, I feel like I would want to keep it for like 30, 40 years, and without worrying too much. It would be a bottle of port or something. Maybe I'll have to rethink on my investment. Vincent, thank you so much for this amazing time. Is there anything you would like to add on you think we missed out on the conversation?
No, I think one of the things we'd always encourage someone who is thinking about investing in wine is take your time picking your right storage provider. Don't be afraid to go and visit a warehouse. We always encourage people to come down. We're very open and transparent about it, so you can actually see. And I don't think people spend enough time thinking about those solutions and actually maybe asking the questions or visiting the place to get that level of reassurance.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you so much, and I wish you a bright future here. Well, bright under the mine at Octavian.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You listen to the Looking Into Wine podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please consider subscribe. We are releasing at the moment on a monthly basis, and many exciting episodes are going to be released in due time. Looking Into Wine is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every major listening app. Remember to say to your friend about Looking Into Wine. And thank you for the ongoing support and for listening to the shows. It's always a pleasure to receive feedbacks from you and ideas for any future guest. Thank you so much, Mattia. Editing and mastering from Tommaso Ascoli.